James Melendez, thank you for joining me today. This topic is about the wines of Umbria, the DOC and DOCGs. Stay tuned. Now, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and please give a like. Now, last year in 22, I was visiting Umbria again and very much enjoy this region, and I can never spend enough time here. I was lucky to be invited to 3 anteprima, Montefalco Sagrantino, Trasimeno, and Torgiano, and to also visit Orvieto. There's still so much to see and do and visit Umbria consecutively and consistently, and to really discover and uncover so many treasures of this beautiful region. Now, looking at Umbria, it's always a crossroads. It's always been a crossroads. Look where the geography of this place is. Umbria, right in the center of the Italian peninsula, has been through so many experiences, and every region in Italy has been. Italy itself is a very young nation compared to other countries within Europe or around the world. So there are places you probably know of and probably have visited as well, such as Assisi, Orvieto, Spoleto, Perugia, and Gubbio, to name a few. The crossroads is because of Rome here, Roma, in the Lazio. Here is Firenze, Florence here in the northwest. Also keep in mind, this is one of the few regions that does not have access to the Adriatic or to the Tyrrhenian seas. Hence, even the food styles here are different. And so you do see some northerly regions that have no access to the sea. Every single region in the peninsula definitely has access to one of the seas. Umbria, the region, is named for the Umbri people. They were an Italic people. They were contemporaries of the Etruscans. While they were contemporaries of each other, they didn't really care for each other. In fact, they were enemies. Eventually, the Etruscans drove the Umbri to the Apennines, the mountains. They did survive the invasion of the territory. The border between Umbria and Etruria is the Tiber River, and the town of Todi is meaning border. The crossroads continues with the Roman Empire, and the Umbri were eventually absorbed into the Roman Empire. The Via Flaminia is a Roman road leading from Rome, going through Spoleto, over the Apennine Mountains to Rimini on the Adriatic coast. After the fall of the Roman Empire, this region falls to the Lombards, and they found the Duchy of Spoleto, which exists from 570 to 1201. The successor is the Papal States from 1201 to the mid-19th century, with a brief interruption by Napoleon. As you can see here, Rome is south of Umbria, and with that comes the experience of the popes. So the Palazzo dei Papi is in Orvieto, just south of the Duomo, and the popes live here between 1262 and 1297. Also, 2 papal elections and 1 papal conclave takes place in Perugia between 1285 and 1305. You can see the artwork of Cimabue and Giotto in the Basilica di San Francesco, as well as the amazing artwork of the Renaissance artist Luca Signorelli. Luca Signorelli's work is in the Duomo di Orvieto. These are stunning artworks to see, and definitely recommend a visit if you're in Orvieto or Assisi. San Francesco, St. Francis, Francis of Assisi, looms large in this region. He looms large even today, in my opinion. I like these images because this is the earliest known image of San Francesco. This is an image that's seen quite often by Philip Frottiers. This image here is Francis is renouncing his father. He's renouncing his wealth. He's renouncing a way of life that he has turned his back against, and is really seeking a different way of life for him and his followers. So this is a brief timeline. There's more to his life. He lived a very short 44 years, and his birth is in question. He was born in 1181 or 1182. You can stop this video to see each of these timeline marks and to see what he has completed over time. I'm very impressed because, first of all, he's born in Assisi, which is the Duchy Spoleto. When he dies, when he passes away, he is in the Papal States, and it's the same city of Assisi. So what is happening is a lot of conflict along the way. He lives in these very turbulent times, and he is a remarkable person. There's something about Francis that is different, and he does things that no one else can quite do. He lives an extraordinary life. He's an extraordinary person. But what I'm very impressed with is he goes to Rome to receive his approval for his order from Innocent III, the Pope. And basically, he gets there. He meets with Bishop Guido of Assisi. He knows Cardinal Bishop of Sabina. Cardinal Sabina is sympathetic to Francis. He has the ear of Pope Innocent III. So Pope Innocent III doesn't quickly give that approval for the order. But he has a dream, and he has a dream that Francis is holding up the Archbasilica of San Giovanni Laterano, St. John Lateran. This is the seat of the Bishop of Rome. It's symbolic to him, and he approves immediately the order for Francis. You can see other things that he has done along the way. Francis is canonized in 1228, 2 years after he passes away. Now let's go back and focus in on Umbrian wines. Now, most people are surprised to learn that the biggest production area is Orvieto DOC, a white wine producing region only. And yes, it is in the central part of Italy, and this is obviously can be a very warm region. It does have influence from several lakes, very large lakes, but it also has, of course, it's not really directly close to the Tyrrhenian or the Adriatic, so it's pretty much the only landlocked Italian region in the peninsula itself. There are 2 DOCGs, 13 DOCs, 6 IGPs, and the vineyard area is 12,400 hectares or 30,600 acres. The case production is 7.2 million, and this region ranks 14 out of 20. So you can say it's on the bottom quartile. So I wouldn't read into this that it's not significant wine region. It is. That's what I love about Italian wines, is they're by region, by experience, is a unique difference that you'll find, and that's the beauty of Italian wines. And here are the principal wine varieties in alpha order. So you'll find Bellone, which is coming from the Lazio. You'll find international varieties of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. The Spanish bring the Grenache. So the Spanish have a lot of influence over time, and that's because of the Habsburg Empire. The Spanish have influence in many ways over time in different parts of Italy, mainly in the south and in Sicilia and Sardinia, but sometimes in the north as well. You see other varieties such as Chile Giolo, as well as Grechetto, Malvasia, Sagrantino, Sangiovese, Trebbiano Spoletino, Trebbiano Toscano, which is known as Procanico, and Orvieto and Verdello. And so this is a photo I took from Montefalco looking north, and you'll see Assisi right here. You'll see vines as well as olive orchards. I'm always looking north. I'm always looking towards Assisi if I can see it. And I'm always fascinated by this region, its history, and remarkable wines, food, and amazing people as well. So I very much appreciate a well-aged Sagrantino wine. There are 994 hectares, about 2,460 acres planted in Umbria. The origins are unknown. Some people say it's a Franciscans returning from Asia Minor. Some have said that it's a Greek origin and it's introduced by the Byzantines. Lastly, it's thought of as being a native variety. We're not really certain of its exact origins. I would tend to think that this could be a native variety, and a lot of the times I hear a lot of people, especially in Italy, say a particular wine grape came from Greece, and research has shown that's not the case always. And also, Pliny the Elder mentions the red wines from Montefalco. Was he talking about Sagrantino? We do not know. We have no way of knowing. Now, traditionally, this region has produced Pasito wines versus a Secco wine. You're going to find more often than not a Secco wine. You will find Pasito wines in the U.S., so one thing you will always have with Easter lamb is you will always have Pasito, never a Secco wine. And so that's contrary to how people would drink a sweet wine in general. And it's not uncommon to experience this here in Umbria. Now the name origins are unknown as well. It could mean Sagra, meaning feast, or Sacrestia, meaning communion wine. I tend to think it could be Sacrestia, but again, this is uncertain. We do not know. There are very, very small plantings in the US and Australia, but the significant portion, overwhelming portion of Sagrantino is in Umbria. Now, let's talk first about the Montefalco Sagrantino DOCG and the Sagrantino Pasito DOCG wines. Now, it's a highly tannic wine, as I just mentioned. Marco Caprai is pivotal in saving Sagrantino in the 1960s from extinction. And so you find that it's 404 acres, as I just mentioned, 998 acres in total. Minimum requirements for the Rosso wines are 13%. Minimum ABV, alcohol by volume, for Pasito is 11%. Aging is going to be quite generous here because it needs to be, because this is a highly tannic wine. It needs time in the bottle. It needs time before release. So Rosso requirements are 37 months, 12 months in barrel, and 4 months in bottle. Pasito is 37 months in total, including 4 months in bottle. Total production is 108,000 cases. Here are some well-known producers, which I visited all 5 of these producers: Arnaldo Caprai, Antonelli, Scacciadiavoli, Tabarini, and La Veneranda. Here are pictures of my visit to Arnaldo Caprai. I tasted all his wines with the exception of these very limited bottlings. So these wines are devoted to paying homage to very particular well-known Italian writers and artists. And so one would be Petrarca, Dante, Giotto. And so I love to taste these wines at some point. And so I tasted Umbrian IGT wines that he produces, as well as his Colli Martani wines. Now this is called Spinning Beauty, which I love that name. It just reminds me of spun gold. It is a spectacular bottle, which I tasted previous to my visit. And this is actually the tête de cuvée of the house of the Cantina. And this is a sterling, beautiful example of finely made, well-crafted Sagrantino wine. I also got to visit Tabarini. So I met Giampaolo Tabarini before, about 10 years ago. In fact, I got this bottle 2005, about 10 years ago. Here's a video right up here in the YouTube cards of my previous review of this wine. It was fantastic then. I would actually give it more points today. So Giampaolo led a media tour and a lunch. In this tour of his cellar, he said to several people, please pick a bottle that you want. How about the Grammadesco Montefalco Sagrantino 2005 again? And to taste it with many more years on it. I think it's a finely crafted, beautiful bottle of finesse, beautiful bottle of Sagrantino. Montefalco DOC. The approved white wine grapes are Tale Trebbiano, Spoleto, and for the red grapes, Sangiovese and Sagrantino. Production area 524 hectares or 1,294 acres. And I won't read the requirements, but please stop the video to see that if you'd like to see that. The next region is, we're going to go to the next DOCG. There's only two in Umbria. This is a very small region. This is Torgiano Rosso Riserva DOCG, and the wine grape here is Sangiovese. And so it's 8 hectares or 20 acres, 3,000 case production. Torgiano comes from Torre di Giano, meaning the Tower of Janus. So this is a really beautiful place to visit. I love Torgiano. Now this wine museum, this is one of the most thoughtful wine museums. I visited quite a number of wine museums in my life. Nicely curated collection of wine objects, implements, books, documents, artifacts. It's owned and operated by the Lungarotti family, and they also operate an olive oil museum as well. And here's some additional pictures of the content that I took photos of, and I actually find it very fascinating. I went to one particular museum, which will not be named here, wine museum, and I was not allowed to take photos, which I thought was really contrary to the mission of wine, if you will, and that is that we should share what we see and bring delight in those things. Photographs are a great way of communicating the story of wine. I enjoyed visiting the Lungarotti Cantina and tasting through some beautiful wines, the Rubesco wines. So I tasted the Rubesco 1974, 79, 81, 92, 2000, and 2012. Some of these, say for example, anything prior to 1990 were not DOCG wines, they were DOC wines. It's a wonder to taste wines that are a snapshot in time. I was delighted and privileged to taste each of these wines. Now, the next region is the Torgiano DOC. So this is slightly larger, 39,400 case production. The allowed grapes in this DOC are Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, Trebbiano, Riesling Italico, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Nero, and Sangiovese. There are only 4 producers, Lungarotti, Terre Margaritelli, as well as Tenute Baldo and Mani de Luna. I tasted 3 of 4 producers with the exception of Mani de Luna. To taste the Lungarotti older Rubesco wines was a privilege. I've never had the opportunity to taste those wines ever at that remarkable aging point. Tasting through this DOC's Rosato wines were fun and exciting. This is a Twilight in Umbria. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful with this gorgeous shot here. And the Tenute Baldo, really of a deeper rosé red colorization. I look forward to putting foot on ground here again. It was a delightful, wonderful experience. So right here in the orange is the Amelia DOC. So it's a smaller production of 2,640 cases, hence you're not going to find these in the United States. I'm not going to read each of the requirements. It's established in 1989. It was originally called the Colli Amarini and then renamed in 2011. The principal wine grapes are Grechetto, Malvasia, Trebbiano, Toscano, Ciliegiolo, Merlot, and Sangiovese. The next DOC is Assisi. Now, this is a smaller region as well. You're going to find that some regions have min and maxes, and so you see that here. Sometimes you'll find a region has only a min, and sometimes only a max, and sometimes both. So this is established in 1997. It is around the town of Assisi itself. The approved wine grapes are Grechetto, Trebbiano, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Nero, and Sangiovese. Smaller case production here, 20,600 cases. You'll see Sportoletti wines in the United States, and possibly because of the name, Assisi is well known, and so this is probably an easier way to market these wines in the United States. But I'm glad to see that. I've yet to taste Assisi wines, and I hope to at some point. And the next DOC is the Colli Altotiberini, and that's standing for the Upper Tiber Hills. Colli Altotiberini is established in 1980. The approved wine grapes are Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, Trebbiano, Riesling Italico, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Nero, and Sangiovese. The area is 81 hectares or 200 acres. And so that's 39,400 cases produced in total. Again, I'm not going to read the minimum requirements. You could definitely read that and stop the video if you'd like to do so. A well-known producer is Colli del Sole. And so I've never found these wines in the United States. I definitely hope to seek this wine out. The Tale of Two Trebbianos. There are quite a number of Trebbianos. So when you hear the word Trebbiano, you should be asking, which Trebbiano is this? And so you're going to see most often in Italy and throughout the world actually, Trebbiano Toscano. And this is called Porcanico in Orvieto, and in other places in the world it's known as Ogne Blanc. And then you're going to find Trebbiano Spoletino, much smaller production. And I find this to be an absolutely charming, handsome, beautiful grape. It's also one where you're going to find that this was saved in the early 2000s from extinction as well. The other Trebbianos that are not related, so these are not related to each other. So you have Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, Trebbiano Modenese, and then Trebbiano Romagnolo. So Colli Martani is close to Montefalco Sagrantino, DOCG, Montefalco DOC, Spoleto, and Todi DOC. You'll find that Montefalco DOC is probably the largest, and it actually might encompass some of these areas where you can actually do both things. You can do a wine that is from Colli Martani as well as a Montefalco DOC wine. It has to obviously follow the parameters of those specific DOCs and can't deviate from that. But that is an availability. Not all wine regions, and that's a curious thing, is you'll find in Italy is that you'll find a denomination that is overlapping other denominations. That's not necessarily uncommon. So the Colli Martani DOC is established in 1988. The approved wine grapes are Chardonnay, Grechetto, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, Trebbiano Toscano, as well as Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Nero, Sangiovese, and Vernaccia Nera. In fact, I don't know of another region that has approved wine grape of Vernaccia Nera. I think this is the only DOC within Umbria that has that. 60,300 case production. You will find this in the United States. Well-known producers are Antonelli and Arnaldo Caprai. The next region, and I've never tasted these wines, which I really hope to taste these in the future, is Colli Perugini. Now, Colli Perugini DOC is established in 1981. The approved wine grapes are Chardonnay, Grechetto, Pinot Bianco, Pinot Grigio, Trebbiano Toscano, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Nero, and Sangiovese. Total case production of 10,300 cases. I know these producers, yet I've yet to taste these wines. There's Goretti and Chiori. Now, I did attend this anteprima. This is Colli del Trasimeno. So this is known by Colli del Trasimeno DOC or Trasimeno DOC. Established in 1972, the approved wine grapes are Chardonnay, Grechetto, Pinot Bianco, Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, Trebbiano, Vermentino, Riesling Italico, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Ciliegiolo, Grenache, Merlot, Pinot Nero, and Sangiovese. So there's an area of 180 hectares or 445 acres, 28,600 cases produced in total. So I tasted two producers, Duca della Corgna as well as Corciolana. Grenache in this region is known as Gamay, and that's probably because of the French. And the French, during the Napoleon campaign for this region, it actually renamed it and called it Département de Trasimene. What was Gamay called before the French? Was it called Garnacha? I do not know, and I cannot find a reference for that. There's a EU-sponsored website for the Gamay of Trasimeno, but it doesn't give that information. I'd like to know more about that. I did ask those questions when I was there, and I didn't really get an answer. So I do believe that over time, the French were influential in changing the name. I don't understand why the French wouldn't just rename it Grenache if it was called something else, because that is a French name, and so they call it Gamay. So perhaps one time in the past, the Grenache grape was mistaken as being Gamay, even though I'm not sure how you could actually mistake these wine grapes for being each other. I guess if it was 200 years ago, you'd have much fewer access to taste these wines, and perhaps that's how things have happened in history. Mistakes have been made. but I do find that to be intriguing. So here's a beautiful shot of the Lago Trasimeno from the point of view of the Castiglioni del Lago. And so tasting right here the Gamay wines, the Grenache wines, and tasting some of the Rosato wines. And so what I find very fascinating is that Lago Trasimeno is a pretty shallow lake. It's about, say, an average of 4.26 meters, which is about 14 feet. The lake itself is the size of San Francisco. There was no inlet or outlet to this particular lake, but it does provide things for, say, keeping areas around the lake, which is where the DOC is, in terms of temperature checks. So you do find, while it's not on the Adriatic, it's not on the Tyrrhenian, there is some water influence here. Next is the Lago di Corbara. This is close to Orvieto. And so this is established in 1988. You're going to find Grechetto, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Vermentino, Cabernet, Merlot, Pinot Nero, and Sangiovese. Because of the lake influence, you can definitely do the Chardonnay in this part of Italy where it's considered to be a warmer region. And of course, Vermentino and Sauvignon Blanc and Grechetto. So the Chardonnay does well here, as well as a Vermentino because of the lake influence. Now, the area is about 43 hectares or 106 acres. And so this is 9,000 cases produced in total. I listed here two well-known producers, Barberan and Tenute Baldo. I've not tasted this wine region. I have a definitive reason to go back to Umbria to taste from these wine regions that I've yet to taste from. Umbria does not face the Tyrrhenian, it does not face the Adriatic, and in this way it is the largest wine production DOC of Umbria. So you have 981,000 cases produced. The production area is large, 2,100 hectares or 5,150 acres. The wine grapes that are approved for this region are Grechetto and Procanico, which is Trebbiano Toscano. And so you do have some min-maxes here in terms of elevation. You're going to find quite a number of Orvieto DOC wines in the US. Now here's some producers I've tasted from, and I did some videos of Lapone. I'll place those videos right up here in the YouTube cards. And of course, I've tasted the Rufino for years, BG, and Ducugnano di Barbi, which I've not tasted these wines before. It was my first time to taste Ducugnano wines ever. Orvieto is a stunningly beautiful place to visit. It's a very small place, a very small town, but one packed full of history. You're going to see a bit of the Duomo here. Here is the Teatro Mancinelli. I was debuting an opera here, and it's a beautiful multi-storied, multi-leveled theater. And then you see here the Pozzo San Patrizio, which was commissioned by Pope Clement VII. Prepare for the city being under siege. And this is a water well. It's very, very deep. And so it's about 174 feet, and that's about 53.15 meters. The double helix staircase, you go down one staircase and then you go up another. It's easy going down and it's harder going up, but it's a really beautiful sight to see, especially when you're peering down and then you see how deep it is, and then you peer upward. And so I've been wanting to visit this for years, so I was able to do so. So this is Domo di Orvieto, also known as the Cattedrale di Santa Maria Assunta, the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. The construction began in 1290, finished in 1591. It's one of the few examples of Italian Gothic architecture. So using the word Italian is not quite accurate. I would call it Italian Peninsula Gothic architecture because Italy did not exist at the point that this was being constructed. You'll see just south of here is the Palazzo dei Papi. And actually the Palazzo dei Papi is it's a museo. It's the museum of the l'Opera di Duomo di Orvieto. So basically the works of the cathedral of the Duomo of Orvieto. And there's really, I don't recall seeing any signs on here saying that this has an association with the popes. So in 2,000 years, the popes have only lived in 7 different locations, including this place. The next region is Rosso Orvietano. Now, this is a very small region. It's devoted to reds, as the name suggests. Rosso Orvietano or Orvietano Rosso. It's established in 1998. So compare and contrast this. This is a very small case production compared to the whites. And so you compare and contrast much smaller case production, 4,200 cases versus 952,000. This does occupy the same space as Orvieto DOC, but this is for the approved red varieties of Rosso Orvietano. So the approved varieties are Aleatico, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Canaiolo Nero, Chile Giollo, Merlot, Montepulciano, Pinot Nero, and Sangiovese. And also I should point out that Orvieto DOC extends into the Lazio as well. The next region, which I have tasted these wines, are Spoleto DOC. Spoleto DOC is devoted to white wines only. That is only one wine grape, the Trebbiano Spoletino. 36 hectares or 89 acres. Fantastic, beautiful wines. I like to see this more often in the US. Well-known producers are Antonelli, Benedetti, and Grigi, and Petricaia. Now you're going to find Todi DOC close to Montefalco. It's established in 2010. The wine grapes that are approved are Grechetto, Merlot, Sangiovese, 110 hectares or 272 acres. The well-known producers of this DOC are Roccafiori, Pepucci, and Tudernam. This is a fantastic journey of Umbria. Umbria is a region that I find haunting in many ways. Its history, its food, its people, its ability to transform you into a different experience. While many people go quickly from Rome to Firenze, Florence, or to Venice, it's one worth stopping. It's worth taking the time out to at least go to Assisi, Perugia, and Orvieto at minimum. And I think a lot of people skip out on that. When I go to Italy, I stay at an Airbnb or Verbo, and I really want to experience being as local as possible, living in terms of the experience of just really being in a neighborhood versus a hotel area, and to go to the alimentari, the specialty food stores, which often do carry wine, or go to a grocery store to pick up bottles of wine. And so you can potentially use this guide and seek out those wines. Sometimes there's tours specifically of a DOCG and DOC, and sometimes you could just pick up wines from the region, like Amelia, for example, which I have not tasted those wines. The next time I'm in Umbria, I'm definitely doing that. I didn't have time on this last tour in 2022, but I'm definitely going to have my list of wines to be tasted that I'm going to buy, purchase, and taste in my own Airbnb, to taste wines from every single DOC possible. And sometimes you can do so at a restaurant, and you can definitely find them in grocery stores as well. They're very inexpensive. Maybe at the end of a busy travel day, you want to enjoy a beautiful regional wine, of Umbrian wine, and to experience it, and to do so in a way that's really, I think, getting a hold of what these wines taste like, and to taste Umbria. That's really the important focus here. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, and please give a like. Thank you so much. I will see you very soon. Salute.